Welcome to the Hunger Games Indian Street Food Edition. Yo, what's up, guys? It's your boy, Pog Wilson, back with another video, and this one's for all my foodie fam out there. Today, we're diving deep, and I mean deep, into the wild world of Indian street food. But hold up, before you start craving some pani puri, we're putting on our hazmat suits because this ain't your regular food review. Get ready to clutch your stomachs as we uncover the top 10 dirtiest street foods that might have you saying, dude, what have I been eating? Alright peeps, let's kick off this countdown with the OG street food king, Pani Puri. These little crispy balls of heaven are a staple, but hold on. Did you know that studies have shown that the pani, that tangy water, is basically a swimming pool for bacteria? I'm talking E. coli, salmonella, the whole gang's here. They party it up in that unfiltered water, especially in those stalls where hygiene is, let's just say, optional. Think about it, fam. That water's been sitting there all day in the sun, with flies doing their thing, and who knows what else falling in. Remember that time you swore you saw the Pani Puri Baya use tap water? Yeah, that wasn't mineral water, my friend. And don't even get me started on the chutneys. Made with questionable ingredients and left out in the open, they're basically breeding grounds for all sorts of nasty stuff. I'm not saying you should swear off Pani Puri forever, but maybe, just maybe, think twice before you go for that extra puri. Next up, we've got Bel Puri, the supposedly healthy option. I mean, it's got veggies, right? So it must be good for you. Wrong. Remember those unwashed vegetables they warn you about in health class? Yeah, they're chilling right here in your Bel Puri, having a grand old time. Think about it, the chopped onions, tomatoes, coriander, all just begging to be washed. But nah, who's got time for that when you've got hungry customers lining up? And the worst part? Those hands, man. Those hands that handle money, touch their faces, and who knows what else, also mix your Bel Puri. It's like a hygiene nightmare disguised as a light snack. Pro tip, if you see the Bel Puri Baya scratching his head while making your order, run! Ah, the samosa, the king of Indian street food. Crispy, golden brown, and filled with deliciousness. But wait, what's that smell? Is that the same oil from last week? Yep, you guessed it. One of the biggest culprits in the samosa game is the oil. These bad boys are deep fried and not always in the freshest of oils. We're talking reused oil, my friends. Oil that's been used over and over and over again, probably since the dawn of time. This oil is basically a breeding ground for free radicals, which can lead to all sorts of health problems. Plus, let's be real, that old oil just doesn't taste as good. It's like the difference between listening to a brand new vinyl and a scratched up cassette tape. So, next time you bite into a samosa, ask yourself, is this crispy goodness worth the risk of consuming oil older than my grandparents? Hold on to your stomachs, folks, because we're about to enter the danger zone with chole bhatur. Now don't get me wrong, I love a good plate of chole bhatur as much as the next guy, but this dish is notorious for being a one-way ticket to food poisoningville. Why? Well, it's all about those ingredients, baby. Chole, those spicy chickpeas, are a breeding ground for bacteria if they're not cooked or stored properly. And let's be real, hygiene standards aren't exactly top-notch at your average street stall. I've seen more bacteria on a petri dish than in some of these kitchens, and those fluffy bhaturas, they soak up oil like a sponge, which, as we learned from the samosa chapter, is not always a good thing. So, unless you're a fan of spending your weekend on the toilet, proceed with caution when it comes to chole bhatur. Alright guys, it's time to get personal. You know how I always say I'm down to try any food? Well, there's one dish that still haunts my nightmares. Pav Bhaji. I'm talking about a full-on food coma that had me questioning my life choices. It all went down at this little street stall, you know, the kind with plastic tables and flies buzzing around. The Pav Bhaji looked and smelled amazing, but little did I know, it was a wolf in sheep's clothing. I'm talking about a fiery, explosive kind of experience, if you catch my drift. Let's just say I spent the next 24 hours glued to the toilet, cursing the day I ever laid eyes on that Pav Bhaji. So yeah, consider this a public service announcement. Approach Pav Bhaji with caution, my friends. It might look innocent, but it can be a silent killer. Ah, the Vada Pav, the pride of Mumbai. This spicy potato patty nestled in a fluffy bun is a classic for a reason. But let's talk about how it's made, shall we? Picture this. A street vendor, sweat dripping from his brow, his hands working furiously to assemble your Vada Pav. But wait, are those gloves? Nope. Hairnet? Not a chance. That's right, folks. The Vada Pav is often assembled with bare hands. Hands that have touched money, wiped sweat, maybe even picked a nose or two. Let's be real. It's enough to make you want to carry hand sanitizer in your pocket at all times. And don't even get me started on the chutney situation. That green chutney, the one that makes the Vada Pav complete, it's often made in large batches left out in the open and served with, you guessed it, those same bare hands. Chapter 7. Jalebi, the sticky situation. Jalebi, those bright orange swirly treats that are basically deep-fried sugar. What's not to love? Well, apart from the potential hygiene hazards, of course. Now, I'm not saying all jalebi is created equal. Your grandma's homemade jalebi made with love and fresh ingredients is probably perfectly fine. But the jalebi you find on the streets? That's a whole different story. First of all, the oil. Just like with samosas, jalebi is often fried in reused oil that's seen better days. And remember those free radicals we talked about? They're having a field day in that oil. Then there's the issue of storage. Jalebi is best eaten fresh, but it's often left out in the open, exposed to dust, flies, and all sorts of other unsavory characters. So next time you're craving something sweet, maybe opt for a piece of fruit instead. Your stomach will thank you. Chat, that glorious mix of crispy, crunchy, tangy, and spicy goodness, is a street food lover's dream. But is it a food safety nightmare? I decided to call in an expert for this one. Dr. Sharma, a food scientist, told me, and I quote, "Street chat is a petri dish of potential pathogens." Not exactly a ringing endorsement, is it? He went on to explain that the combination of ingredients, from the chopped onions and tomatoes to the chutneys and spices, creates the perfect environment for bacteria to thrive. And when you factor in the often unhygienic conditions in which chat is prepared and served, it's no wonder that food poisoning is a real risk. So while chat may be delicious, it's important to be mindful of the risks before you dig in. Remember that time you swore you'd never eat street food again after a particularly nasty bout of food poisoning? Yeah, kachori might be the culprit behind many of those stories. These deep-fried, savory snacks are a popular street food item, but they've also been linked to several food poisoning outbreaks. Just last year, there was a news report about a group of people who got sick after eating kachori from a street vendor. The culprit? You guessed it, unhygienic food handling practices. From the preparation to the serving, kachori often goes through multiple hands, none of which are wearing gloves, of course. And the filling? Well, let's just say it's best not to think about what might be lurking inside. So, unless you're a fan of playing Russian roulette with your digestive system, you might want to think twice before indulging in a plate of kachori. We've arrived at the final destination on our journey through the dark side of Indian street food, and it's a big one, dosa. Yes, that crispy, crepe-like delicacy that's loved by millions. But before you grab your chutney and sambar, listen up. Dosa, while delicious, can be a breeding ground for bacteria if it's not prepared and cooked properly. The batter, made from fermented rice and lentils, is a prime suspect for bacterial growth if it's not handled with care. And those fillings, from potatoes to paneer, they can also harbor unwanted guests if they're not fresh or stored correctly. So, what's the verdict? Can you enjoy dosa without risking your health? The key, my friends, is choosing your vendor wisely. Look for stalls that are clean and well-maintained and where the food is cooked fresh to order. So there you have it, folks. The top 10 dirtiest Indian street foods. Now, before you grab your pitchforks and torches, let me just say this. I'm not saying you should never eat street food again. Part of the Indian experience is indulging in these roadside delights. But, and this is a big but, it's important to be mindful of where and what you're eating. Don't be afraid to ask the vendor about their hygiene practices. And if something doesn't look or smell right, trust your gut, literally. Stay safe, stay healthy, and happy eating.